Okay, gonna be working on the E46 M3 today, but before we do that, something has to happen with this. These grills fit horribly, so what we have is two brand new OE grills. Um, Ordered both of these from ECS. They're genuine parts, and they will take care of these ill-fitting grills. Satisfying to see that go away. We'll get this one off too. Before we put the new ones on here, we're going to touch up some of these rock chips, and then we'll be able to put the car back outside. I'm not sure if that's a rock chip or if whoever installed this grill did it, but we'll get it fixed. All right, so I picked up some touch-up paint. Comes with a giant brush. Probably going to end up applying it with this little skewer here, just so it's not as messy. First things first, just going to get some of the rust out of there so that we can coat it properly. Last thing we want is any rust growing. So let's do that first. Definitely just a little hint of surface rust here. Nothing major, but you definitely want to take care of it because the last thing you'd want is something like this to start growing. That's the other thing I forgot to mention is both of these cars have always been in the South. This one spent a lot of time in Louisiana. The other one I think has been in Texas its whole life, which does wonders for the undercarriage. At least compared to cars that have been, up north. Definitely won't be winning any awards for this, but it'll look better than it did before. We'll put a couple of coats on here until we get it flush, and then we'll move forward. There we go. Much better in my opinion. Okay, the first time under the M3, it's BMW, so of course there's some oil. Looks like a car that's driven some miles on it. Don't see any corrosion or anything. I'm hoping that's either the CPV valve, I think is the name of it, or possibly a valve cover gasket. We'll investigate that once we get the pan off and we can see a little bit better. But yeah, I guess the next step is going to be to disassemble and see if we can find out where our knocking noise is coming from. Pretty easy to get in here. These are just going to be some 8mm. I think these are 16. Technically, these are one-time use bolts. But we'll probably put them back in there for the time being until we figure out what our problem is. So yeah, let's go ahead and get these off. All right, got greeted to a bunch of oil. Can't really see where it's coming from just from here. It could have been, a previous problem. We'll clean all this off for now and get on to the next part. Okay, we've got a pretty oily pan here. There's the steering coupler. That's something to consider replacing while in here. But the number one suspect right now are the engine mounts. You can see it's completely collapsed on that side. This side is absolutely no better. See if I can zoom in to show you here. Yeah, that looks awful. It's so bad that the front of the oil pan is actually contacting the sway bar right here. Never seen that before. Normally there's enough room to put a little block or something in between there. So my idea is maybe all of this moving when the wheel moves up and down is causing the grumbling sound at low speeds. Either way, I'm not driving it until this is fixed. That's absolutely scary. So we'll start there. We'll go ahead and replace the control arms because I already purchased those. Sway bar end links. We're going to do the shocks and struts as well. And we'll see how the inner tie rods and everything look. But by the end of this, we'll probably have a completely new front end on the car. Just part of the fun of buying a high mileage used car with no maintenance history. But what can you do? We're already here. So we'll go ahead and fix it and move on down the road. And not trying to be too hard on the car. I mean, it is a clean car. You can tell it's always been down in Texas. There's no corrosion under here. It's got some nice parts on it. So yeah, we'll have to put a little bit of money into the car, but it'll be worth it in the end. One other thing I found was a status screw-up mid-pipe going into the dining rear box. Looks like the headers are stock. Looks like the O2 sensors are possibly original. We might go ahead and replace those as well, just so we know we're getting good readings to the ECU. Catalytic converters, factory. So everything is factory up until the mid-pipe you see right there. Let me see if I can zoom in. Also found the rear end had some poly bushings in them. That might explain some of the differential noise that's coming into the car. Also bought some new fluid to put in the rear end because, again, we have no records, so we have to assume nothing has been done. I was actually told the big three on this car had been done, but without records, we have to just assume it's not. And with this much oil on the bottom of the pan, I would say absolutely it hasn't been done because that always gets a new oil pan gasket. Oh well, still got a good deal in the car. We'll get it fixed up and it'll be good as new and driving as good as any other E46 M3 out there. It's now the next day. Last evening I went ahead and ordered new engine mounts, transmission mounts, these end links, and as well as a new fan blade. Since we'll have to pull that out, we might as well replace that since it's known to explode. So yeah, it looks like we'll be having almost a brand new front end. I'm gonna go ahead and do the control arms now, just because they aren't really related to the engine mounts. So I can go ahead and get a head start before they arrive in the mail. Pretty straightforward. Remove this clip here. Last thing you wanna do is break that when it comes down. It's really just removing, you know, a couple 16s. Not sure what this is, but we'll find out soon. I think it might be an 18. This looks like it might be a little bit difficult to get to, but if there's a will, there's a way. Also ordered new front control arm bushings because why not? Okay, I think the control arms are a good call. I mean, look at how much movement. It shouldn't move like this, I wouldn't think. Control arm bushings, they might be okay, but I can move them with my hand without much effort, so that's probably not a good thing either. But yeah, look at that. That's crazy. Just another angle of the F-cab here. Like I'm not even getting good leverage on it. I'm able to flex it with my hand. So yeah, I guess these have served their life well and they'll be going in the trash. I don't normally work on two sides at once. I normally always complete one side first, but I just had to take a look and see if this one was just as bad, and wow. Seems like this is doing almost nothing except for physically holding it there in place. So I'm pretty sure this is gonna drive like a new car when I'm done. So 18 on the top is loose. Next we'll do this one, which is a 21. The back is already loose, and once that's done, this will drop out of there. Okay, my 21 was just a little too long, so what I ended up doing was putting a swivel socket on it. Very long extension, removed the intake boot, and was able to get it from here. Took quite a bit of force to break it loose. I actually had to use a breaker bar, but we should be able to drop this control arm now and replace it, and we should be good to go. Celebrated a little too early. I'm gonna put some pressure on this joint since it's a press fit. And hopefully now that there's pressure against it, it won't spin and it will allow the nut to come completely off. All right, it looks like that did the trick. So once I take this other 18 off, break the ball joints loose, it should fall out of here. looks like that's just gonna fall out. I think the only thing holding it is this one here. Picked this kit up off of eBay for like 25 bucks. We're gonna use it to separate this, and as you can see, that one's almost completely out of there just from whacking it a few times. So it just fits in between, destroys everything in its path, so you wouldn't want to use this on something you're gonna reuse, but in this case, this control arm is trash, unfortunately. So let's get it off of there. Took some persuasion with the mini sledge, but we're ready to drop this thing out. Probably could have done it without this, but it just makes it so much easier. It was worth the small expense for it. Came with other various sizes too, so this will pay for itself in short order. Here we have brand new limb forwarder pieces, new hardware, control arm bushing. Very difficult to move these, whereas the other ones would just literally. So yeah, I think this is a worthwhile investment. If you have a higher mileage E46 M3, I'd probably go ahead and do it. One way to tell it's a genuine part, you can see they hit this with a grinder just to knock the part off here. A lot of times you'll see the BMW logo ground off. But yep, this is a genuine part at probably half the price. So I went ahead and lined these up just so I could get the angle right. I put a little bit of shampoo on there so it'll slide on easily. And this one is ready to go back in the car. This side is now completely done, with exception of the tie rods, the sway bar end link. I'm gonna save those until after I do the engine mounts, just because I don't want to disturb what's going on here. I don't want to change the tension or anything where the engine might shift. It looks pretty nice compared to this side, which looks very crusty compared, not to mention completely worn out. So we'll rinse, lather, and repeat. And once this side is done, we will move on to the engine mounts once they arrive. A couple of days have passed. I gave time for my shipment to come in. Got the rest of the parts here to do my front end rebuild. Got the OE engine mounts, transmission mounts, tie rod ends, boot kit. Should be everything I need to get the front end of this car back to good condition and driving well again. To do the mounts, I'm gonna have to remove some of this stuff just because it's gonna be in the way. Gotta tilt the engine up, which means the fan needs to come out so it doesn't get broken. Went ahead and ordered a new fan as well. A little worried about these. I've heard stories of them exploding and ruining the hood. It's the last thing we want. For 75 bucks, you know, why not? So we'll start by getting all of this out to give us room to lift the engine up to do the mounts. Pulled this off, pulled off all the little tabs. Next, we're just gonna remove the remaining bolts. I believe there's 2 on top and 2 on the bottom that we'll have to go get. After that, we'll remove the fan assembly and then we can get onto the mounts. Definitely a racing car. Quick disconnect. Fancy. Okay, gonna have 2 more, one right there, one on the other side in a similar location, and then we'll be able to pull the whole assembly out. Of course, we need some special tools for the fan. 32 millimeters. This is just to hold the pulley so you can break it loose. It's not the usual righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. It's gonna be a righty-loosey. Okay, fan is out. Of course, bought a new one because I don't want to put this back in here and have it explode and ruin my hood. So we'll disassemble this, put the fan clutch into the new one once we're ready to put it back in. One other question I have is this car has factory xenons, but I don't know where the box is. It must have been relocated for this dining intake, but I might have to do some searching for it. The mounts are just held on with a pair of 16s. Pretty simple to get to. You might have to make an extension with a wobble on it just to get around the control arms. Upon retrospect, probably could have loosened all this before I put the control arms on or did the job in between, but hindsight's always 20/20. Okay, going in through the top, I just snaked some extensions through there. No big deal. Had to use a breaker bar to get it loose just because the extensions got pretty long. Other side won't be quite this easy, but we'll get there when we get there, which will hopefully not be very long from now. Okay, got my bolt out. A bit of an oversight. This needs to come off too. As soon as I raised the engine up, it contacted this almost instantly. Just a couple of 13s, 4 of them to be exact. The most challenging thing about removing this brace is just not to drop the parts down in the engine bay and have to go look for them. There we go. Okay, I spoke too soon. This needs to come out as well. SMG reservoir, specifically the cap, is starting to run into it and don't have quite enough room to pull everything out of the subframe down there. So we're gonna go ahead and pull this out. Pretty simple, but it's just one more thing to do on the top end before you start going underneath the car. All right, this should give us ample room for activities. Should make the other side a little bit easier as well. So an extra maybe 5 minutes of work, if that, but if you're doing this, just do that first. Okay, there we go. That one is in. The real challenge is gonna be on the passenger side just because these engines tilt that way, but let's go work on it now. Put the bolts on just finger tight for now. Go ahead and tighten up the top one a little bit more. That way, if the engine needs to pivot or anything a little bit, it'll have just that little bit of extra slack, but not enough to where it can come back off the mounts and cause a huge headache. Just doing the one mount has actually pulled us off the sway bar already, so that's great. And that wasn't even the worst of the two. Like this one over here is completely pancaked out. So yep, things are looking good. Here's a new mount next to the original driver's side mount. You can already see the difference is extremely drastic. So once we get the other one off, I imagine it'll be an even greater difference. Passenger side mount is now in. Car is sitting much higher, as you can see. We're way off the sway bar, which is great news. I didn't film doing this side because honestly, it wasn't that fun. It took a lot of involvement and I was a little worried about my fingers. So rather than try to film, I simply just got the job done. But what I ended up doing was I raised the engine by the AC compressor area. And I actually ended up loosening the subframe a little bit and dropping it down maybe a 1/4 inch or so, just to give me a little bit more I needed to get this in. But it's in, all my fingers are intact, so I'd say that's a win. Here's a shot of the old mounts. You can see the one is even more collapsed than the other one. So yeah, if you haven't done these and you're over 100,000 miles, I'd say go ahead and get them done for sure. Next, I'm going to replace these. A lot of play in them. Shouldn't move like that. But that should be easy enough and it will restore our nice steering feel that BMW is known for. So this is just an 18. We'll break this ball joint loose. We'll count the number of threads and we'll put our whole new unit on. And hopefully counting these threads will get it close to where it'll drive somewhat straight. We're going to go straight to the alignment shop because again, I'm going to be doing coilovers and some other things to this car. But this will at least get us there without too much drama. Broke the ball joint loose, remove the boot. and we're ready to swap these over. All we'll have to do is remove this giant nut, pull everything off, set our new tie rod to approximately the same amount of threads, and we should be good to go on this side. New inner is on. Of course, we're using limb porter pieces. Everything feels very tight compared to the old one, which was very floppy and easy to move with just your fingers. So I think this was a good call for pretty minimal investment. New one is now on. Absolutely zero play here. So that's perfect. We're gonna rinse, lather, and repeat on this side. You really just cut these guys off. Pretty simple to remove. So we'll go ahead and swap this one out too, and our steering should be back to almost original. Only other thing that could possibly be wrong would be the steering rack itself, or maybe the steering coupler, but I think we're gonna be good. Front end refresh is now completely done. Everything looks great. Can't wait to go get the car aligned and see how it feels when I drive it. Truth be told though, it's gonna be a little while till I get there. While I have everything apart, I want to go ahead and take care of some of these oil leaks. I think they look worse than they really are. One of them is for sure the CPV valve. Went ahead and ordered a new one of those. Probably could have gotten away with just the O-ring, but at this mileage, I figured why not just order the whole valve and start fresh. Also noticed the valve cover gasket is leaking, so I went ahead and ordered a new one of those. While I have all that apart, I'm going to go ahead and do plugs, coils, basically all the stuff that probably should have been done a long time ago, and who knows if it's actually been done. By the same thought, I went ahead and ordered a fuel filter, and I think that's gonna be it for a while. Once this is all done, I'm gonna do the coilovers next, and then I should be able to drop the car down and see how it feels. So I'm really excited to get to that point, and it's just a little bit more wrenching to go until I get there. So I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks so much.